Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Cities with John. I'm This Old Gamer, and I'm thrilled to have you along for the ride today, as we are all set for Downtown Episode 16, part of a two-part series, sort of. And here is a good look at Downtown Episode 15 final results. We created a massive ore industrial area. Check that episode out if you're interested in some ore industries. And stick around, it's going to be a great episode. I'm really excited about this one. We'll see you in a second.
This Old Gamer is paid for by contributions by viewers like you, and by
Brothers, sisters, rejoice, like your ancestors once did. The great mountain calls, and the people's minds are open for business, and now recruiting new now hiring new workers. Those who will choose to join us in the people's minds and be on our job site, will be rewarded not only on Earth, but below it. The people's minds.
So we are right across from the Riverview District, and I have made a bridge to connect it over to the Riverview. This is an old bridge that's been around way before the big overpass bridge was created. And I've even added a little bit more to that ore industry, a giant warehouse for ore storage. But today we are going to be making an old town, for lack of better terms. Yes, it is about time that I created a older part of downtown. Well, there are older parts of downtown, but this is going to be kind of like the original part of downtown. Sort of a commercial district, a little residential, a little entertainment, a little tourism, all wrapped into one. But I am super excited about today's show. And before I forget, I'm going to plug something. A little bit later in the episode, we will have the first ever less than a half mile 500 presented by This Old Gamer. Yes, a race. No, I'm not copying off By BonBonB. I did not spend hours upon hours making the race, but it is an exciting race, and you're going to have to check it out, especially if you are in support of soccer moms, but that'll make a lot more sense later. So we are focusing on this area first. This is going to be lots of old buildings, but we're kind of mixing them in with some newer looking assets here or there. I tried to create something that would resemble an old part of town that might have had some buildings that have been repurposed multiple times. So maybe it started off as a business, got turned into maybe residential, got turned back into a business, and now it's reestablished itself as something new. Just like this episode. A new episode. These are some fantastic assets we're using today, so we are using a combination of a couple different things. I will link some of these on my descriptions below, but just look up Smilies. He is an excellent asset maker. He makes all sorts of things, but lots of great old commercial downtown looking buildings that are just fantastic. Highly recommend looking him up on the workshop if you have not. He also creates a lot of trees, bushes, flowers, just a ton of good stuff. And he has a lot of these smaller buildings that are great for just wedging in little spots here or there. And then this Colors nightclub is actually a King Leno asset, which is just an absolute beautiful building that just ties really well into these buildings by Smilies. So when you're making a downtown district, one thing to keep in mind is you want your buildings to be very close together, as if they are all combined, so to speak. Yes, it's fine to have a few gaps here or there if you want, maybe some alleyways and things like that, which we do make on this episode, but generally speaking, it's good to have them very close so they all make one giant run of buildings. But this is a busy intersection right across from the Riverview District, and this old bridge it's a very historical part of town. It's been around for the longest of any part of town. It's right here by the mountain range. So a lot of people come over here just to check out the old buildings and things, but like I said, a lot of these buildings are being repurposed for new conglomerates and entrepreneurs out there that are buying up these old properties and giving them new hope and a new look. So this episode was not without some difficulties. For one, in the middle of the episode when I was recording and building everything, the power went out at the house. And even though I have my quick save on every 20 minutes, I believe it is, apparently it doesn't always work. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that, but I lost a good chunk of this, sadly. So I had to redo a little bit of it, but not too much. And as I was redoing it, kind of got a new perspective on some of the things I was doing that I was able to make even better. So turn a negative into a positive. I think that's what life is all about, right? So just kind of using these different assets to create this downtown look. And here's something that I haven't done in quite a while, and that is making a Old-Timey Church. So we have a historic downtown, and we're also going to have a historic church here. I love these brick roads. The brick roads I'm using are by Urbanist. And then this road here that I'm putting that it is going to have the church by it is by Macwelshman, which makes the UK project roads. Lots of great roads for a European build, but they also work in a number of different ways. You can really use them anywhere, any kind of build. They are sometimes a little on the narrow side, and a lot of them do have props and different decorations already part of them. So some of you might like that, and some of you might not like that. So you have to kind of play around with them to find the right one, but they're great roads. They look a lot different from the other roads that you'll find on the workshop and on the game. So yeah, they do create a little bit of a different look when you do use them. So here I'm using Palpable Asphalt. This is the grass that is part of the Palpable Asphalt mod. If you recall, Palpable Asphalt is one of 5 mods that you should use, but you don't. I hope you decided to use some of those mods. Palpable Asphalt is a huge win for all designers because you can really create just about anything with them, but especially covering up ugly spots and ugly areas of your map when you're doing the little detailing. That little portion there had a rather strange looking hill through it that I just couldn't get to work with the buildings around it, and terraforming wasn't really helping me out. So I decided just to use these ploppable grass squares to just take care of the situation. And again, I'm using them here to make a double-decker flower bed type thing. A double-decker flower bed type thing. And then just throwing some curbs in underneath to give that a lifted look. Gonna kind of use some procedure objects here to get a curb that can just kind of fit underneath it nice and snug without having to go crazy with the props. Just kind of set in like that. So these ploppable grass squares, creating things like flower beds, things of that nature, it's just fantastic for that. I highly recommend all the different ploppable asphalt attachments. There's ploppable gravel, ploppable all sorts of stuff that you can use to make some beauty on your map. But this is a nice little alleyway that's taking you right across from the next road over in between these buildings, and then a quick crosswalk over to where we're going to be building this And what's a church without a graveyard? And this is a very historic graveyard. It's been there for quite some time. There was a lot of discussion and arguments in the community when the bridge was built, if it was going to deter the beauty of this property, but it didn't, I think. I don't know, that's my opinion. The bridge was necessary, okay? We had to get people across from the modern downtown and the beachfront and all that. So kind of going through and adding some individual headstones and individual graves. Lots of good graves and tombstones and things on the workshop for you to use. Some of these are props, but the first two laid down are actually functional. I do have death care basically turned off, but that mod doesn't exactly always do what you want. You still have to have, from what I can tell, I still have to have some of the elder care centers and the child care centers just to make sure my population doesn't completely tank. That was a Sunset Harbor update. So I've got those in some places on the map, but I'm not really making it a point to putting them anywhere that is very noticeable. I'm just kind of putting them places just to be able to use them and for that population not to tank very much. I don't know. I haven't really figured out. I know what basically the mod that I'm referring to, the no death care mod, actually just prevents you from having to worry about the amount of cemeteries and things like that, hearses and all that. You don't see any hearses driving around anymore. So, and here we go, the poppable gravel, by the way. But you don't see hearses going around anymore, and you don't have the problem of having to worry about emptying your graveyards and things of that nature. That's all gone from the game. However, it seems like I still struggle with population growth at times. And even after I lay down like a bunch of residential, it seems like it doesn't go up. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me. I haven't really figured it all out. I have so many mods. I mean, there's probably some conflicts that I'm not aware of just yet. But nevertheless, this is a very famous graveyard. It has lots of Sloop John Island famous residents laying in it, including the founders of Sloop John Island are buried here. Yes, I am just totally making this up as I go. I love this old church though. It looks great. I think it matches just perfectly with this downtown. We're gonna put some mausoleums over this way, like so. And I'll turn those around. Oh, I just love it. Just love it. Okay, so across from the old commercial downtown, we're just gonna put a little cut-in road. And this is about the spot where the power went out. So I had all this over here completely built. I had, which you'll see, I kind of redo some of it in the same way that I was going to do it, but I did not use these buildings. So I went a little bit different with the buildings on this part than I did the first time. But funny thing is, all the recording and all that is still there. So I've got an alternative version basically of this portion of the episode. And I don't want to even, I don't even want to look at it, to be honest with you, because I might look at it and be like, oh, that did look better actually. So we're just going to leave that alone. We're just using Move It to copy and paste all these buildings. And these buildings have multiple colors. So you see, I'm just kind of flipping around and making sure all the colors kind of match up. Not the end of the world if they don't, but since it's like a brick color and it's just 3 different shades of brick color, I kind of wanted them to match. Then behind it, we're going to put some newer apartment buildings around the same size, but a little bit newer. Kind of the idea of that road as being behind there, that road is kind of like a newer road that was built just to add in a few more residential buildings, where the ones on the main boulevard there have been around for a long time. Most of these buildings are by Fiend Build. Not all of them, but most of them. He is popular for his Brooklyn Reworked collection on the workshop, so check him out as well. Her, him, I don't know. Check them out as well. I say him a lot. I apologize. It could, I don't know the gender of these individuals. I just know they're brilliant creators. So this part I did kind of redo exactly like I had it on the first time around because I just liked it so much. You know I love Walgreens. This is like Walgreens number 7, I believe, on this map. I think that's realistic, though. I mean, how many Walgreens do you have in your hometown? Please comment with how many Walgreens you have. And do you get your prescriptions there? I know when I go to my therapist, I go straight to Walgreens for my pills. Here I'm just using some modern condos by Smilies as well. Smilies just has a little bit of everything on his workshop page. It's absolutely brilliant. And if I had just Smilies and King Leno assets, I think I'd be a pretty happy guy, because they just make some really good stuff that and they also make similar scale. So usually if you use those two creators, Smilies and King Leno stuff together in a map, they're going to scale correctly, and they're very similar in size. So that is also a plus. Less usage of procedure objects, which we do use later in the episode to build the mountain resort portion of this build. So this is kind of in behind that big warehouse, just some extra space for some more people to live. This of course is prime property, as we are right down from the giant ore industry area, the Willow Ore Industry area that is pumping out the pollution that it happens to be blowing directly on this part of downtown, and I sincerely apologize to the citizens. As you know, I do what I can for pollution in this build. I'm all for cutting down on pollution in my city, but unfortunately it's just not happening over here. There is a lot of pollution. Using the curb networks, we're just kind of putting a little detailing around these condos. There we go, fixing one of those annoying little spots that Surface Painter just loves to drive me nuts with. A little ploppable asphalt there. Just gonna adjust this Walgreens a tad. Yes, I love it, I love it, I love it. This mountain base, we're going to throw in some of these prop bushes, these really large ones, just to kind of give this mountain base a different look. I did change a little bit of my theme on the mountains. You'll see that later when we do the cinematics at the end. The mountains do look a little bit different. I made a decision that I should have made a long time ago, but nevertheless. So I had this little idea to make a kind of a resort up here on top of this hill. This is kind of like an area that was newly developed, and the idea is a lot of people coming over here, like I said earlier, there's a lot of tourists coming to this part of town because it is the old part of town. It's got lots of neat small businesses, locally owned small businesses. So I decided, why not do a little terraforming? Put a nice little spot up here for some big hotels and casinos. You know, I love casinos. So that is what we are doing. And by the way, if you like casinos, check out my beach resort series. I think you'll enjoy that. This is a Monaco building. This is the Café de Paris. The Monaco series of assets is on the workshop. It is a Macwelshman collection. He's the one that made the UK roads that we talked about earlier. This is a building that is actually, I guess it's kind of like considered a giant fancy restaurant, but I am kind of disguising it as Casino Royale, which I never put in a Casino Royale in the beach series, where my kind of based loosely off a Las Vegas Strip area is. There's no Casino Royale over there, and so now there's a Casino Royale over here in this district, and I think that looks really awesome up there on the hill. So here I'm kind of just putting in a spot where the road that loops around and goes onto the bridge, this is like where that road used to end and would connect with another road over here. But when they shut that down and they put in the giant loop to get you onto the bridge, this is the area of road that is still sitting there, kind of just deteriorating away through just, you know, usual weather and things of that nature. Just using a lot of decals and stuff to make this look like just a little ran out portion of the city that was kind of missed, I guess you would say. And then we are going to put in some trees around here like that. Really like how this loop turned out to get you over to the other side of town. I think that looks really, really good. Just kind of a little bit more concrete here. And we'll just kind of throw in a few prop bushes. So here at the corner from the canal and the river connecting here, we have a nice quay, goes all the way around this corner, creates a really interesting waterfront area. So this is just kind of more of the continuation of the old town buildings that we're just putting down here. I really, really enjoyed making the waterfront on Downtown episode 14, I believe it was, the Riverview District episode. And again, we're kind of making one down here as well. These are some more of the buildings by Smilies. And I do use some of the same buildings twice, just because they look so good. But when I do, I cover them, cover the signs up with different signs. And by the way, I'm not going to use that other small church there. I just didn't feel like the scale was right with it. But we're just kind of combining the Smilies buildings along with the Fiendbuild buildings, the Brooklyn reworked buildings as well. Just kind of putting them together. I think they fit together rather nicely. So the corner there where the brick road is was the original road. Kind of took you up to the mountains where you could get a good shot at the Windy River Falls there. But this little loop that goes around it was more of a modern, just to kind of make, the idea is it's supposed to look like it's been there forever, but it just kind of loops around, and these buildings were built. Now when I say it's more modern, like this is like built in the 1950s maybe, where this rest of this downtown was like the late 1800s per se. When I was making this, I kind of thought, you know, this is a tropical build, and these buildings do have obviously a New York vibe, but these are not I think they work here too because they just look old, and that's the look I'm going for. I'm trying to just make sure that they look old but aren't like too you know, I don't know. I don't want to. I'm not trying to recreate Brooklyn by any means, which you couldn't really do on this map anyway. Oh, that looks great. I'm gonna put a little Starbucks in here. We're just gonna wedge it in between these buildings. Just gonna move these down. Lots of back and forth when you are making a downtown area, especially when you're having to put these buildings together and squeeze them together like I'm doing. We're just gonna kind of wedge this Starbucks right in there. Oh, you gotta get rid of this flickery roof there. There's a little clipping involved. When you combine buildings, sometimes at odd angles, you'll get those roofs that kind of clip. But here is a quick fix for it. I'm just using like a roof decal or a roof prop. Roof. And using procedure objects just to kind of stretch this out to cover up that weird glitch we got going on. I tried my best to get rid of that glitch by changing some of the heights on these buildings and things like that, but that didn't work, so I decided just to use the procedure objects method. So about this time in the recording, I zoomed out to take a look at everything and saw some flying cars having a race, and I figured, first off, you guys know how much I love flying cars, but I figured, what the heck, let's just do something fun with it. Not just record it, let's do something fun. Hello and welcome to the first ever This Old Gamer Less Than a Half Mile 500. Let's meet the competitors. Karen Bates is a professional blogger from the Great Coast, and Tiffany Johnson, a soccer mom from the Elk District. Where our competitors are in position, and let's get this race underway. Wow, what a start for Tiffany, as she is off the line very hot and very fast in this race as we are entering the middle of this river portion. Remember, the first competitor to get to their parking spot in Riverview will receive a $100 Piggly Wiggly gift card courtesy of This Old Gamer. Tiffany at this point has quite a demanding lead as they enter the final stretch here. And yes, Tiffany has made it to her parking spot, and that about does it for the first ever Less Than a Half Mile 500, and I'm sure we'll never hear the end of this on Karen's blogs. From Flying Car Raceway, I'm This Old Gamer. Keep it between the ditches. So take a look at this river coast and a nice key, boat museum, Bud Light bar and grill. I really like how this turned out. You'll see it a lot better in the cinematics. There's the boat museum. Looks really good there. So back to on top of this mountain, just kind of installing some more touristy type buildings. We have a really cool Monaco asset again there in the corner of that hotel with the umbrellas there. And then in the middle with the green roof is actually part of one of the downloadable contents. I'll find out. I'll find out what it is real quick. Let's see here. I guess I didn't jot which one it is from. Okay. I'll look that up. I'll look that up or something. Just kind of decorating around this Monaco hotel. Oh, these people just drove right into the bushes. Let me get those bushes out of there for you. This asset came with a little parking lot on the side, so I decided just to keep it and just kind of go with it. Here's the Mgm Grand Signature Hotel. This is a King Leno asset. I'm using procedure objects to kind of get it scaled down just a tad. It was a little bit too big for this area. Now I'm doing the same thing with another King Leno asset, the Mgm Grand Hotel. Now for some reason when you put this Mgm Grand in procedure objects, it kind of chops it in half. It is like a giant, it is a huge asset. So it kind of chops it in half. I don't know if it's because it's so big or something, but it actually works for this because I'm just kind of making one that's kind of right here overlooking the waterfall. Very, very close to that waterfall. Probably too close from an erosion standpoint. And then same thing with this Mgm Grand sign. It's just a little bit too big, so I'm just using procedure objects. Now keep in mind, when you do that on buildings, they basically become non-functional. However, you can always like hide a small building inside of them, or there's even assets on the workshop now that basically are like fake buildings you can place anywhere. You can just have a little block there on the ground that people will, like the Sims will recognize it as being a building or being a spot that they want to go to, whether it be commercial, residential, whatever. So you can just put those right in the middle of them. I'm not too concerned about it at this point. There is a huge parking garage over there that everybody is going to be going to. I have a feeling it's going to cause some major traffic issues up here. I thought about using procedure objects to actually kind of cut the ends of these buildings off where they are literally like right up flush with the mountain. That's what I did with the MGM Grand, but I didn't do it with these other buildings. I did want some of these buildings to be functional, even though I just said how you don't have to worry about that. I still, there's some of the core mechanisms on this game I try to keep the same. It's like I don't feel like I'm cheating on, in the game or something, but in a sense I kind of do. I do miss playing vanilla. I will say that. I would like to play vanilla again, start like a vanilla build. Let me know if you guys would be interested in seeing a vanilla build. It's been so long since I've done it like that, but ooh, well, it would be challenging. We already have somebody passing out at this casino. There's an ambulance out front. What am I going to do with this? Well, I know procedure objects. See how great procedure objects is, people. It's really easy to use. Subscribe to it. Well, that about does it for Downtown episode 16. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed building it. Imagine all this being on one episode as I originally planned. That would have been a long one. But this has been a long one too, and I hope you stuck around. Some great cinematics are on the way. Hit that like button, subscribe to my channel for more content, and thank you for all my new subscribers. Great to have you on board. I'm This Old Gamer. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.